you, David. True honor to be here to close off this great conference with the physicality and the metaphysicality of the future human. And wondering how I change slides. This thing?
That's forward. That's
okay,
back.
Great. I'm so honored to be here among some of really key people in my life, really dear friends and colleagues and people that I really respect and admire. Thank you. My name is Denisa. You can find out more about me at denisarensen.com, blissdesign.com. Essentially, a lot of the work that I do now has really came in as revelations in my time in Hawaii. I ran a boutique practice for women mainly on anti-aging and regenerative medicine, focusing in functional medicine, integrative medicine, naturopathic medicine, the cutting edge side of, reversing biological age and so on, IVs, PRP, hormones, the whole works. And one night, in the middle of a Hawaiian night, I received what people call, Kundalini activation, energy flowing in like light through. And from that time, I started receiving a lot of messages around the importance of shifting my work around designing women's lives for health, designing women's lives for bliss. Bliss is the zenith of human metaphysical and physical experience, and that should be the ultimate goal of all medicine. That's Medicine 101. So I began formulating online programs, I began formulating workshops and retreats. It was an entrepreneurial journey, so it was ups and downs, like sometimes it's rocking out and sometimes it's really quiet, and it's always kind of like that until I finally find myself a really rocking team. So if you like my work and you would love to work with me as my team, I need some techies on my team down the road. I run programs on age reversal, bliss designed salons. They're essentially workshops, but I like to make this really kind of elegant and sophisticated and sexy for women. Now, I work with women mainly just because I niched it that way. I know my girls really well, but a lot of the programs are now being asked to kind of present some of the information in a different way for my brothers, my colleagues that are male. So I will be designing that probably in the next year. I run a Bliss Design magazine, which focuses on 4 areas of our lives: your physicality, your metaphysicality, your eros, and your legacy. Those are the 4 spectra of the human that I talk about that are really critical in activating the epigenetic milieu of the future human, who we are meant to become. If we're going to be living to 120, 150, who is the human you must be to thrive? Yeah? And that's kind of also being really delineated in the Age Reversal 360 book, these 4 spectra. Now, I like to dabble in poetry. It just kind of comes through and so on. So I just want to let you know my angle is just one of many angles on transhumanism, posthumanism. It's kind of a hyper-feminine angle, so bear with me. But it's kind of romantic and it's kind of beautiful. So just enjoy, sit back and relax. There is silence in every noise, a signal in all distortion. So my approach to listening to all my colleagues and so on, sometimes I don't agree, sometimes I don't understand, but there is always a signal in every message, right? So just sit back and just feel into the signal that I may be bringing to you. It may sound like a lot of noise or distortion, but there's a reason why you're here, and there's a reason why I'm speaking to you. So let me know what that is at the end, or write to me. Technology is a way of revealing. I did my undergraduate degree at McMaster University in Canada in biology and philosophy, and Heidegger was kind of my favorite guy in those times. And in 1977, he wrote this great essay, The Question Concerning Technology, and essentially really noting that it's a post-humanist stance, that technology is not a means, it's essentially revealing who we are, right? It's an evolution, it's a revelation of truth, it's a revelation of human nature. So who are we being as we're designing technology at this time? It's really key to keep in mind. Who are you being? The future human, the philosophies, I'm not a trained philosopher. I didn't go beyond my undergraduate degree in philosophy. But as far as I understand it, it's kind of sometimes nice to get it from non-professionals. Post-humanism and transhumanism, essentially, they have different roots in philosophy. Transhumanism comes from enlightenment, and it's focused on progress and use of reason, science, and technology, human enhancement. There is this like visceral pull to evolution, visceral pull to improvement of our lives. And post-humanisms come from postmodernism, and they're about deconstruction, decentralization, essentially saying, well, the human is not really the center of the universe, so let's all relax and let's look around what the relationality is of the human. And so I kind of straddle both worlds, I feel. What I'm really interested in looking at post-dual transhumanism, transhumanism that's based on essentially the idea of the post-duality, where you're able to kind of rise above the polarities, the good and the bad, and the white and the black, and the woman and the man, essentially looking at how we are being as post-human, post-dual humans. And something for you might want to look up is integral transhumanism. It's a paper that I read recently by Michael Tennyson. It was a PhD thesis, and he really kind of fuses Ken Wilber's integral theory with transhumanism and talks about, well, you know what? If you're going to plug human beings into superintelligence, they might want to pass a few developmental tests, right? Where are they in terms of consciousness evolution? Where are they in terms of physical health? Where are they in terms of understanding community and the cosmology of the world? It's an interesting stance. Have a look. That's that. So let's look at metaphysicality. So I'm going backwards. So I'm going to look at metaphysicality of the future human, and then we'll go into physicality. So my area is medicine. I treat it more as design process. And basically, when I talk about metaphysicality, I just mean beyond the soma, beyond the flesh, beyond the kind of hardware, yeah. And essentially, we're going to be touching on the psychology of the future human, the mysticality, sometimes the mercuriality of our lives, and the transcendentality, your ability to transcend, go beyond your identity, who you think you are. And in the realm of metaphysicality, I talk about the metaphysical spectrum of the human. When I speak with my clients, when I speak in my age reversal salons, I talk about we live our lives between victimhood and freedom, yeah? Between the wounded states and our healthy states. We are born quite pure. Yes, we may have 16 generations of DNA methylation, like there is stuff coming out of our ancestry, but we're pretty much born relatively clean, and we accumulate all kinds of pain along the way. We are wounded, yeah? And basically, so those are metaphysical states, ways of being that are usually, resulting in reactions to life. You get triggered, you feel shame, guilt. I mean, we could go on and on what the wounded states are. And we are moving towards healthy freedom, metaphysical freedom, post-dual consciousness, enlightenment, unity consciousness, and so on. So we travel this spectrum along the way, and I always try to identify where we are as individuals on these spectrum. I also talk about the yin and yang in my work. I study traditional Chinese medicine as well. And there's a lot of wounded yang in the world, yeah? There's a lot of wounded, the control, the critique, that's a lot of that reactionary energy, and I identify that in my work as well. And there's a lot of wounded yin in the world as well. The shame, the guilt, the worthlessness, all of that. So I identify that people's lives as well. So you can identify where are you wounded in your yin and yang, and how does that actually come up in your life and in your body. Metaphysicality. Francesca Ferrando is one of my favorite post-human philosophers. She's out of NYU. Look her up, posthuman.org. And she talks about essentially what we should be really focusing on in the future human metaphysicality is a stance that's non-dual. I would argue post-dual, because you can never really be non-dual as long as you're in this body. Once you exit, okay, go into infinity and you're fine. Interconnection, relationality, coexistence, affinity, empathy, agape type of love that she talks about. Jeffrey Martin, out of Transformative Space, out of San Francisco, he's a PhD, and he studies enlightenment, folks that are kind of doing a lot of meditation and exiting the polarities of our, the hyperfrontality, 21st century normal, and going into the flow states and living there more and more. And he talks about ongoing non-symbolic experiences. We want humans that are kind of resonating right here, yeah, into the future. Non-dual consciousness, self-transcendence, unity consciousness. There's a great book called Opposable Minds that talks about the ability to hold two opposing positions at the same time and transcend them, yeah. Resolution of paradox. The only way to resolve paradox in our lives is to transcend it, yeah? So essentially you start to live in a mindset where you can see the paradox, it's happening in front of you, but it's no longer relevant to your decisions, yeah? So you're able to live in those two dimensions. And we are looking at post-dual attitudes and metaphysical poise. We are Taoist technology, and we want to come to a sense of center. So in my work, I talk about 3 spectra, actually 4, but I'm just going to very briefly touch on 3. The physical spectrum of your life, your body travels between degeneration and regeneration every second of the day. Whatever you choose to eat has either regenerative intent or degenerative intent, yes? So I talk about that in my work, and I place all that medicine, integrated medicine, in that spectrum. The metaphysical, we just touched on that. You're moving between victimhood and freedom, and that is essentially the ascent towards post-dual consciousness. And the erotic spectrum, that started coming through about a year ago, year and a half ago, and essentially it's got this polarity between Thanatos and Eros. Eros is the life instinct. Thanatos is the death instinct. And we travel that spectrum in our lives. So we travel from this numbness, Society is quite numb. Humans are afraid to be erotically open. Now, erotically doesn't necessarily mean sexually open. It means switched on, alive, ability, like there's this existential ignition in you that you can wake up, right? We travel between numbness and bliss and ecstasis in our lives. Now, touching on bliss and ecstasis, the flow state. Who here is into flow states? Yeah? Yeah. Great. Flow Genome Project, Stealing Fire, Jamie Wheel, Stephen Kotler, Mihaly, and those guys. So the flow state is essentially altered state of consciousness. It's hypofrontal. It's your ability to step into innovative states, lateral thinking. There are 4 stages in the flow state. But in my work, I divide the flow state into bliss and ecstasis. Because I'm really trained in Chinese medicine as well, I look at the yin and the yang of the flow state. Bliss being the inhaling nature of the flow. You inhale the blessedness of the flow state. I mean, if you've been in the flow state, you have a sense of selflessness, timelessness, richness, effortlessness. That's like quality human experience. So bliss is the yin flavor of it, and ecstasis is the yang flavor of it. It's more rapturous. It's kind of like when you see the surfer cutting through those waves like they're in ecstasis, yeah? They're kind of not in bliss per se, but there may be moments of bliss coming through, blessedness versus rapture. And that's kind of a poetic distinction I make in bliss and ecstasis. It's an optimal state of consciousness where we feel our best and we perform our best. That's according to the Flow Genome Project. Now, because I look at this from a kind of a romantic feminine view, I would say we create our best. The yin in you will speak about creation, the yang in you will speak about performance. Yeah, it's just a different flavor of how we see life. Eros came through, and it's coming through poetry, it's coming through, and now, looking at Plato, Aristotle, Jung, Freud. I'm writing a book called The Erotic Soul, Woman and Genuine Metaphysics. Just kind of like an expose. And it's essentially quite poetic in nature, but it really talks about the necessity of this energy that comes out of us. Imagine when you were 16 and you fell in love. Like, you can move mountains to be with that person, right? And it's not necessarily sexual. It's a creative force, like being alive, right? Like David said, the future is for life lovers. It's your intelligence in love. We need our intelligence to be in love to create beautiful technology in the world, benevolent technology. Sometimes even agape won't really get that power. It's really about opening the heart, opening the human soul, and being in love with life itself, with beauty itself, as Plato would say. And of course, I talk about this a lot in the world. I did lectures on epigenetics plus. This is the epigenetic milieu of the future human, bliss, eros, ecstasis, and so on. And I do master classes, age reversal salons, and I just spoke in Luxembourg, bliss and eros, the superpowers of the future femme. So it was super fun. It was great. It was with the Princess of Luxembourg, and she just loved this stuff. I mean, we girls get this very easily. I'm actually collaborating with a fantastic musician out of Italy on a binaural biosonological album of experiential, experimental music, 40-minute pieces, taking you from the beta, the alpha, the beta, the theta, the delta, the gamma states, around the concept of bliss, ecstasis, eros, and the future human. So these will be experiential medicine type of pieces. He's a very well-known experimental musician, sound artist. So finding different ways of creating this experientially through workshops and retreats and so on. The physicality, the medicine in all of this. We travel between degeneration and regeneration. If you have a cigarette, that's probably going to have a degenerative intent. But I was in Dharamsala one time, and I studied with a Tibetan physician, and he asked me, "Hey, do you smoke?" And I was like, I was 24. I was like, "Yeah, I do smoke." And he says, "Oh, don't worry, poison kills poison." I was like, "Oh." So, something, you might have a hyper-organic salad, but if you have toxic thoughts, you may actually be going through a degenerative path. We know this. This is classic functional integrative medicine 101. What is degenerative? Inflammation, oxidative stress, breakdown of autoregulation, senescence. You hear about that a lot. Stagnation. Yeah, that's in Chinese medicine. Stagnation is the path to death. If you don't move, you die. Regeneration, autoregulation. That I really emphasize this in my work. Bioresilience, homeostasis. The endocannabinoid system is critical here. Neuroimmune, endocrine poise, detox, perfusion, move. You gotta get that energy in. You gotta perfuse your organs. Stem cell, gene therapy, all of that is regenerative. get to know the hallmarks of aging if you're going to be in this dialogue. This is a great paper, Lopez, Otin et al., 2013, or just look up any of the work by Aubrey de Grey. Life Extension Advocacy Foundation, LEAF is a great place to get this information. They're doing fantastic work around informing us of the latest research and where is the research at, and so on. I want to stress the importance of homeostasis, of bioresilience. Because my area is in integrative, functional, naturopathic medicine, I look at, well, what do we need to do to stimulate the body to repair itself? That's number one. Like if you do that, then 50% of the work is done. So we're talking about functional longevity, autoregulation. We want to support the buffering capacity of the body. There's a great paper I recommend you look up that was written in May by Jun Yoon that I got to meet in San Francisco. And he wrote a great paper about the pendulum hypothesis around longevity. Have a look at it. It's really complicated. I'm still trying to get my head around it, but it's all about bioresilience. How do you stimulate the body's own repair mechanisms? And we're going to have to do this whether you do gene therapy or not. Yeah? You're going to have to be able to self-repair at every second of the day. How are you doing with that?
1 minute.
Oh, wow. Okay. Post-human bodies. Agathe François is a PhD at University of Montreal. She's writing some fantastic work about creating new figurations, new mythologies of the human body. And Mathieu, I believe Mathieu, you'll really enjoy her work. If you want to really expand, get out of the linear thinking about the future, exponential thinking about the future, look up her work. She is upcoming. Moon Rebus, we talked about her, I think our biohacking colleague. She has seismic sense in real time. We've got trans-species coming up, very exciting what's going on with post-human bodies. And I want to leave you with Martin Heidegger again. I want to remind us, we're building new mythologies around the future. And once there was a time when the bringing forth of the true into the beautiful was called techne. So let's really get real here, what we're doing. This is the full quote. And essentially, technology is about revelation, and it's about the safekeeping of truth. What is truth? You'll probably get that in psychedelic experiences the fastest at this time, but we're going to be able to access this information much more readily with experiential virtual realities as well. The future human is you plus. Post-dual consciousness, sublime embodiment, resonant technology, resonant to truth, to cosmic truth, regenerative genomic expression. I'm flying tonight to see my babies in Japan. I haven't seen them for a few months, so I just put their picture up there. And just letting you know, I will be in Japan from this week, and this is one of the most beautiful things about Japanese culture and how they view transhumanism, posthumanism is something I'm going to be exploring when I get there. The word for person, hito, min, is 2 lines. 1 line and 2 lines. This is an abstract calligraphy. And they uphold each other. In Japanese metaphysics, you could say, you never stand alone. You're always in relation to someone else or something else. So we are inherently relational, and I want you to just kind of leave us with this. We uphold each other right here, right now. Thank you.
So, have you heard a talk like that at a Transhumanist or Humanity Plus conference before?